who is the most important diplomat in American history. He was the architect of the containment policy after World War II. He is a deity in American statesmanship. He said, if you go into the Ukraine, you're going to force the Russians to have a violent response. William Perry, who was Bill Clinton's Secretary of State, said, if you go into the Ukraine with NATO, I'm going to resign because you are forcing the Russians to retaliate violently. And William Burns, who is now the head of the CIA, was then the U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union, said the same thing. He said, you cannot move NATO into Ukraine because it is going to force the Russians to retaliate violently. And he said, he called it a red line. He said, if you cross that red line, Russia is going to have to go into the Ukraine. So all of us knew that. All of our diplomats knew that. And the comic book depiction that the American people have been told by their leadership. I'm going to tell you something. The seats that you're sitting on today, you know who first put those seats in here? The very seats you're sitting on. Donahue. Phil Donahue. Phil Donahue is the most important, the most popular daytime host. And you know what happened to him at the height of his popularity? He told the truth about the Iraq War. He said there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. 2 days later, he lost his job. And that's why those seats are empty. We have to, and now we all know he was right. So what I'm saying today, I know 10 years from now, everybody's going to understand this is the truth. We have been lied to by our press, by our government, and we need to start hearing the truth, and we need to stop paying attention to these comic book depictions that say there's bad guys and good guys, and America's always the good guy, and we never make mistakes. We have to understand there's nuance, there's complexity in our relationships, and we need to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of our adversaries if we're going to have true peace in the world, which we all want.
All right, this takes us to a question from Sandy Moore, a stay-at-home mom in Chicago. Might be interesting given what you just said.
Your father and uncle were heroes in the Democratic Party. Would they be considered Democrats today? And are you shocked by how you're being treated by the Democrats in the media?
I'm not happy about it, but I'm not shocked. I know, people get subsumed in orthodoxy. I believe that the values that I am trying to promote are the exact values that my father and my uncle would have promoted. And I've written books about my family. I've studied them. I have, the more that I've studied my family, the more I've written and researched on my uncle and my father, the more proud I am of them. And I devoted my life to promoting the same government that I think they promote. And I'm trying to, one of my purposes in running is to remind the Democratic Party of, what we are supposed to represent and what we've always represented. And, people have said to me, why don't you run it as an independent? And I say, because I'm a Democrat. This is who I am. This is my identity, but I want my party back. I want my party to be the party that I grew up in, the party of John Kennedy, the party of Robert Kennedy, the party of FDR, and Harry Truman.
You say that you're a Democrat, but you're getting a lot of support from a lot of leading voices on the right, like Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, former President Donald Trump. Many Democrats fear that you're spoiling the race, that you will damage President Biden in the primary and grease the skids for former President Trump to return to the Oval Office. This week, former President Trump said about you, Kennedy is smart and he's a common sense guy. What kind of man do you think Donald Trump is?
Well, here's what I'm not going to do in this race. I'm not going to attack other people personally. I don't think it's good for our country. And I think, what I'm trying to do in this race is bring people together, is to try to bridge the divide between Americans. And guess what? When my dad died and we took this train ride from, this 7.5-hour train ride that was supposed to be 2 hours, I was with him when he died in Los Angeles, and then we brought his body from New York, Penn Station, Union Station, and Washington, D.C. And it was a 2.5-hour ride, but it took 7.5 hours because we're 2.5 American, all of the major urban stations in Trenton, Newark, Wilmington, and Baltimore, there were black Americans in battle in the Republic. There were whites in the rural areas who are holding up signs "Goodbye Bobby, pray for us, Bobby," American flag standing, saluting. 4 years later, and they supported my father in the primaries in 1968. 4 years later, in 1972, they were not supporting my father, and they were not supporting George McGovern, who was aligned with my father on all these issues. Instead, the vast majority of them were supporting George Wallace. And you know, my father was able to harness these populist energies. The last day of his life, he won the most rural state in this country, South Dakota, and the most urban. He was able to bridge the divide of people who would otherwise be Republican, but wanted somebody who was common sense, who was able to appeal to their idealism, who was able to find the hero in each of them, who was able to get them to transcend narrow self-interest and see themselves as part of a community and part of this, incredible American adventure, and modern self